Good morning, Dan. It's the welcome back to the fitness podcast. That was like a morning show. It's just me and M today. Canal is off scratching his nut somewhere else, and we are just going to this week speak about goal setting and maybe a different perspective on goal setting, and also just the general goal setting. It is now. We're recording this on the 15th of December. This will come out just before Christmas, and it will be ready and raring to go in terms of you already looking at your goals. For most people that are wanting to start, we've had a lot of people already in December say, no, I'm going to start in December, or I'm ready to go in January. So people are already kind of geared up to get their goals already, which is phenomenal. I think COVID a couple of years ago really shortlisted people's ability to go and get goals for January, not like waiting in January to get them, but actually being a little bit more proactive and saying, hey, this is going to be big or this is going to be different. So therefore, I want to kind of know what I'm doing afterwards to get those goals. So it's really important that we now set those and have these strategies in place to say, hey, if you want to go and get something, let's go and fucking get it. So let's facilitate that. So how are we going to facilitate this this masterpiece of the January goal setting?
I mean, the first thing that I would start with is to reflect on the year. Like, why would you continue to set goals that you may or may not achieve without reflecting on the previous year that you tried to achieve something? So I think the first step in setting new goals is to actually know where you are compared to the goals that you used to set. So going back and actually reflect over the years and go, okay, so what went really well? What did I achieve? Like, as in positive. And then what didn't I achieve? And then reflect on, well, why didn't I achieve this? And then go, like dig a little bit, because the success of your next goals is probably going to be somewhere there in the missing void of what didn't I do, or what didn't I achieve, and why didn't I achieve it? What was my part of not achieving that? And from there, set the new goals. Something that I just said before we said press play was, based off that, I think you can identify which I just called it principles, but which principles didn't you live by that then didn't enable you to get to that goal? So I ran a mastermind this week, and I talked about like my principles for 2022 then, and how I would look at my efforts in the next year. And also because I'm highly about like, how do you show up every day? Like, who are you? That's kind of where I am at in my coaching. Like, who are you in achieving all of these things? And it comes back to these principles. I'm happy to share mine, maybe now or maybe later in this in the episode, because I think that they could inspire people to maybe think about what it means to have principles, or it will just help them go, okay, that sounds really good, I haven't even thought about it. But yeah, in terms of goals, we can come back to the principles, because I think part of the principles is like, okay, cool, but what do I want? So it's like the next step, right? So in terms of goals,
before you go into the goals, can I just echo what you said about that? Looking back at the past, I think something that I'm using a lot at the moment, and I say it in this way, is like, what factually did you do last year? What factually happened the last time you tried to do this? And a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, well, I did this or I did that. And it's like, no, but what factually did you do? Like, how many weeks did you spend dieting? How much kilos did you get off? Factually, what did you achieve? Because that cuts through the emotional dissidence of the bias that comes with, oh, but it was okay, it was busy, it was this, that, and the other. It's like, no. Factually, how did you show up? Factually, what can you prove to yourself that you did that? And I think, one of the biggest things in like therapy is like, where's the factual information claim, or where is the non-factual information to support this claim? Like, if you want to go and choose, get 20 kilos off starting in January, but you've had that goal for 10 years. Okay, what factually did you do last January, and what factually didn't you do? And what factually is the thing that was stopping you last time? And then once you identify that, and like, reflections are great and they need to happen, and that is the start of looking at numbers and the stats don't lie, and factually looking at this. But when you look at it and you don't write it down on a piece of paper, or you're doing it by yourself where you don't have that perspective of like, these are the facts, then you almost kind of can kind of revel in your own bullshit to some degree to kind of say, oh no, this year is going to be different. It's like, well, no, this year won't be different unless you're different. And this year won't change compared to last year if you don't change. So you need to see the factual information written out in front of you, hurt that ego a little bit, and then say, okay, well, if factually I tried the 20 kilos last time and I tried to do a 12-week diet and I tried to do low carb, or I tried to do Weight Watchers, or I tried to do the juice diet, but then also this January, I'm already planning on doing the exact same thing. Well, then factually it didn't work last year. So why the fuck would you do it again? Like, if pinpricks in your eyes didn't give you a desired result, why would you go and pinprick your eyes again? So it's one of those where you look factually and then you move on from the factual information rather than dissidence of bias. So sorry, and then go into your goals now.
No, but I think that's perfectly a good place to put that in, because you can't be factual unless you know what you're doing. And this is really where the whole thing about numbers, putting things down, measuring things, like we can talk about the SMART goal setting because it's applicable. I think SMART goal setting is a good starting point. It's not everything to goal setting, but it is a great way of going, okay, but am I taking ownership over this? Have I looked at this goal from various perspectives? And if you can say, yes, I am, well, then at the end of the year, you will have something to reflect on, and you will be able to see what worked, what didn't work, and you will be able to see, numbers.
Yeah.
And take out the emotion, because yes, emotions are very important, but we don't want to actually make all of our decisions from an emotional state. And we don't also want to place judgment on what's working or not working based on how we feel, because it's so easy if we're in a bad rut of feeling shit about ourselves, then it's so easy to not see, because you're gonna see what you feel. Basically, you're gonna see what you feel. So if you feel shit, well, what are you gonna see? You're gonna see no improvements. You're not gonna see the thing that worked, or you're not gonna be able to be reflective and objective. So which is why, by the way, we recommend having a coach. Just saying, because you don't have that, then you can be as emotional as you want to, and you will have someone there to ground you. So that's like one of the big takeaway of having a coach, right? To have someone to keep you grounded when you're off flying. Goal setting. Should we talk about SMART goal setting? Do you think that's valuable? Or have we
I don't personally think so. I think we should just go into looking at it from a perspective of okay, cool. Just before we go into the goals, to give a roundup of SMART targets. Don't be a dickhead with how much you're expecting of yourself. Make sure that it's measurable, and then also make sure that you're actually wanting the goal. They're the three things that you should worry about. We don't need to go into the technicalities, but in terms of goal setting, the way I would do it, and the way that I like to do it is you've got, I think reverse engineering is an incredibly useful tool to see what you've got to do daily to get to where you want to, but you've got to start where you want to end up. And I think there's an immense goal of having something that's short to medium, that is tangible, that is something that is facts driven, that is something that you can bite onto and really latch yourself onto. But ultimately, I think the longest term goals that you can have need to be infinite. And what that means is that it's ultimately something that you can really rarely achieve within a 6-12 month period. If you can have something as an overarching statement, like a mission statement, as a principle, as you spoke about before, where it's infinite. So for us, everyone that comes on at autonomy is driven to get to autonomy, which is a place of control of your health and fitness, which ultimately is never going to exist 100%. But the principle of it allows you to go from 60% in control, 65, 70% in control, onto the point of where you're in control most of the time. And then when you're not in control, you know how to get back into control. So that's, you should always have an infinite goal, because I feel like the biggest thing outside of goals setting and achieving them, which everyone can achieve the goals that they want, that's ultimately a bread and butter thing. You will get it if you have the right effort, the right attention, and the right level of coaching or desire in the right area, enough information. It's the transition to that next goal that becomes very, very sticky, and where people lose their mojo, motivation, discipline, desire, because they don't know how to transition from goal to goal. But if you have an infinite goal that is a mission statement forever, then you never will fall into that rut of having no drive, no push going forwards. Because if your infinite goal is always to kind of maintain your health and control on your health and fitness or autonomy, or it's to be the best version of yourself, being the best version of yourself never ends. So having that as a mission statement underpinning to these goals is really important. Whichever one you choose, you could choose, just being the best version of yourself every single day, showing up every day, having autonomy with your health and fitness, giving my 100% all every single day. Whatever that mission statement is, have that, hold it dear to your heart, find something that you're really important to you. And then once you then work on these goals, then you'll get both the long-term gratification and drive, as well as the short-term motivation, discipline, and fix up that comes with having those short and medium term goals. What would you say about that?
No, I agree. I think, goals are so important because they guide us towards the behavior we need to start implementing today. The way that I look at it, it's like, I've been huge on studying quantum physics lately, by the way, so this is going to become a little bit quantum, but like the goals in your future is something that you have an like energetic pull towards, right? The goals and it's not about the goals, it's about who are you when you have those goals, because that's the thing that will drive you to become and get those goals. It's like, how do I understand that whatever is in the future has a certain behavior attached to it, or a certain circumstance, a certain way of thinking, a certain way of speaking, a certain way of all of these things. That goal is linked to a specific way of being, we can say, to make it simplified. Now, how do I then know what that is so that I can start being that way today? That solves your problem in a way, because that means that you then just tap into that person. It's a lot easier said than done, 100%. But most people, when you ask them, because what I do when I sit down with people, say, okay, so what does that person look like? What does that person say, behave? How does that person feel about themselves? And then how does that person show up? And we talk about, if we can talk about the principles that I'm happy to share with, like for me, and what I'm going to focus on, but it's really about like, what does it mean to have everything that I always wanted? And I agree, you have to have an infinite goal, like, because if you don't have an infinite goal, I think you lose track of yourself, because we are by nature always striving for something, and because that means that we're always going to find the happiness in the journey, because we can never reach the destination. Actually, we don't reach a destination, because once we do, that destination was just not there, like it's like somewhere else. So it's really about also understanding that the goal, the end goal, it's not the end goal, it's just another checkpoint. Yeah. And if you've attached that, by that point I will be X, I will feel that, it's like, that's where you shoot yourself in the foot, because that journey of I'm constantly trying to develop myself, and that's where I find happiness, then you're going to be fine. But if you say at this point I will be X, you're dead. Like, because you're going to be so unhappy, and you're going to realize that everything is a fraud. And once you realize everything is a fraud, you'll end up in that lost place of like, oh my God, I don't know, where am I going now? I need to do this, I need to and then you go back to who you used to be, because that's familiar.
Yeah 100%. So like, I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and it's like, I think in that beginning phase, like, if you've got people around you that are in that particular spot, then obviously you can see them and kind of mirror them, which is really interesting. Like for me, Adam, one of our close friends who's also been on the podcast, he's always someone that I'd aspire to in terms of his actions, his behaviors, but also like the way he lives his life and what he's got in terms of possessions and stuff. And I just look at that and go, okay, well, if I want that Ferrari, the way that he's got the Ferrari, then I need to do X to be able to do so. So you take on board someone else's mission, someone else's like values, and you just mimic them until they become your own, which are really, really important. And like, but like you said, once you have that, if you've attached a certain thing to a car, or you've attached that certain thing to a body weight, you never get that. Like when I know that when I get that supercar, which is going to come at some point, I know that it will not make me more happier in any way, shape or form than if I had a Ford KA, apart from maybe the experience of the Ferrari. But at the same time is that it's not about that. It's about the chase of that, the noble chase of something, to be able to have that materialistic thing, which is still great, and at the same time is like the desire to got it must have leapt you 50 steps forwards. So the 50 steps forwards are way more valuable than the attainment of that particular thing. I know that by the time I get that particular thing or have the resources to be able to get that, then I will know that my own education, my own business, my own mindset will have infinitely made millions and millions of better decisions, would have made millions and millions of better outcomes. And also then, the effort and the reward that comes from the other parts that I've been able to facilitate that. Like I know I'll have to help 300 different new people to be able to get that. And the 300 new people are really important versus the thing that I'm going to be able to buy with their finances that they've paid me for coaching. And therefore that attainment is not the goal. The desire and the need to pursue something is, and the lessons that come from that pursuit is the ultimate king out of everything. Like ultimately, like if you're going in and wanting to lose 10 kilos, bringing it back to obviously fitness, is that if you want to lose 10 kilos, the attainment of the 10 kilos doesn't mean that you will get all of the benefits of being 10 kilos less. It just means that your body weight is less than 10 kilos, you're less fat. But it's the attainment of the principles of walking more often, prepping your own food, understanding the education around food, not hitting the fuck it button, being consistent, learning consistency, learning how to show up every day, learning how to make your own motivation and make your own look. These are the principles that come from that desired goal. But people miss out on those things because they think that all that is mattering is that 10 kilos. And then when they get the 10 kilos, they realize they're still fucking unhappy. They still hate the missus. They still hate their job. And it's like, okay, well, if even those things would, the other things that are going on in your life are important to go and solve by themselves. And the attainment of that 10 kilos less, or the attainment of the Ferrari, doesn't actually give you those desired things. It appeases it for a short space of time, and then you just go back through that cycle. The amount of times that I've bought something or achieved something with the money that I've got, or the places I've been, and then still sat there going, fucking hell, it's still a Thursday, and it doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what I've got, it's still a Thursday, which means this is going on, and I feel like death. And none of those things change that. So the attainment of those specific skills and principles are ultimately the reason why you do that goal. But you have to have that goal initially, because ultimately goals come from a negative place. And this is just a ramble, but we'll take it, is that ultimately goals come from a negative place. They come from an emotional lack of insufficiency for the most part, especially that first goal. Like, why have you been trying to chase fat loss for 20 years? Why? Well, why does it matter that you're 10 kilos less? Why does it matter that you need to fit into a small t-shirt versus a large one? Because something is telling you, whether it's the feedback from that large t-shirt saying that, oh shit, this is getting tight, and you feel insecure, or the fact that you don't like the way that you feel in your own skin when you see yourself butt naked in the mirror. And that's where the insufficiency starts. And then you then attach that insufficiency to moving away towards this specific goal of, if I get 10 kilos off, I will not feel that particular way about myself. And I will tell you now, there are millions of people with abs and veins on their abs in incredible shape, hating their life much more than you, and hating their life in terms of, the rest of their life, as opposed to this ab thing. It just takes one more monopoly away, or one more bowling pin away from other things that actually are more important. So when you lose that, when you get in shape, you're like, oh shit, this is not all it's cracked up to be, and I still have all the other things going on.
So I want to disagree with you. I agree, and I also disagree with you here. Good. Which I like. I do think that not every goal comes from a negative place of lack, because it doesn't. Like, there are two types of motivational directions which we actually gravitate and make decisions from. I wrote a book about this, by the way, which I'm releasing soon. So if anyone wants it, just holla at your girl. But the fact is still that we always make decisions either away from something we don't want or towards something that we do want. And I think that it's the lack of awareness that sometimes puts you in a place. Like, for example, say that you have a person and he's been so focused on his business and his family, and he's just been unaware of his own self because he's been way too much focused on achieving the thing that he wanted, because the towards pleasure of success in business and finance, whatever it is, was the forefront of his focus. And you can't focus on everything at the same time. So for his for his sake, it might have been the lack of awareness. Yes, at some point he wakes up and goes, right, I'm actually quite unhealthy because I get wiped out every time I have to go down to the store if I can't play with my kid. At that point, it's okay. Someone who's away from motivation, they will feel this is hard, this, I don't like that. And they will make decisions based on how they feel negatively. Like they want to move away from that discomfort and that pain. Whereas other people is like, but actually I want to move towards the energetic, being able to play with my kid and be a good role model and be attached to that way of looking at it. Same outcome, losing weight, but two different places of starting, right? And the problem is, and this is where I want to put this out here because it's in the book, but if you're stuck in like the away from pain type of motivation, meaning that you wait until things get so painful where you go, I'm awake and I need to move away from this. This is too much for me to handle, which usually happens after this Christmas period because people they just continue to consume and drink and get tired and lethargic and move less. And at that point, it's like, actually, now I feel so uncomfortable. I'm just going to make a change, right? That's what happens. We are ready for you guys when you are coming out at the end of this year and you go, holy fuck, let me get some help. But nonetheless, the problem is why people yo-yo is because, okay, you start January 2nd and either you do it on your own, you do it with a coach, whatever, you do it for a few months and then you start to feel better. But if you still in touch with motivation you'll actually lose motivation because your motivation comes from pain. It doesn't come from pleasure, right? So for those people, very, very important to understand what is on the opposite side of that pain. Pain is a great starting point, but you have to then look at the opposite side of it. What will it give you? What will it bring to you? How will it improve? And what will be desirable about changing? Because if you don't start to attach your focus onto that, at some point you will lose motivation because the thing that motivates you, which is pain, will no longer be there. And at that point you will lose quote unquote motivation and you start to go back because now you're feeling the motivation again. So the people who are stuck in the start stop yo-yo cycle, you have to look at what is actually beneath my behavior, which could be I'm just so attached to my pain that it makes me then wanting to go back to it because it's the only thing that motivates me. So
yeah, I think I 100% agree on that. I think in my experience, most people like the idea of that going forwards and looking forwards, but most people do associate with that negative one. And like, if you're listening to this and you get 5 to 6 kilos off and then you lose this motivation to do the same things that you did before, you're not running on motivation, you're running on pain. And I've done that. I think I did a video on this or a post on this years ago. Like when I first started autonomy, I was like, because I truly believe that ultimately a long-term goal and the ability to stay in shape for life requires you to move from pain into driving forwards. It's from fixed mindset to growth mindset. And it's almost like a strategical change in your focus points. But if you lost 5 to 6 kilos, then you lose the mojo. You didn't lose the mojo. You just had the wrong goal. And people are really effective at losing the goal that they're really effective of getting the goals that they want. But if your goal is to move away from pain, you can do that within 2 to 4 kilos. And no wonder you're not going forwards because you've hit the non-pain point. You have no desire to go forwards. And all you're doing is waiting for that pain to kick you up the dick. And then when that happens, then you're oh yeah, I need to make change now. And it's the same when people lose like 20 to 30 kilos. When they lose 20 to 30 kilos, but then they gain 10 back, the reason why they can't go back on another diet or they really struggle in moving into that next step and chipping off the last part or staying in shape is because they're waiting for those alarm bells to ring, but you've got 30 kilos of wiggle room for alarm bells, and which is a big jump. If you've gone from 100 kilos down to 70, because you've been where you've been before, your alarm bells won't ring until that 29th kilo. And then you're fucked because you've just gained 30 kilos. And that's obviously the negative side of things. And that's what the job is that once you assess your pain and you assess where you're at and why you want to make the change, you've got to step forwards and you've got to look forwards to be able to get the next 5 off, 10 off. And those that those that stuck in the rut, it's because they don't goal set the right way. They don't set those principles in place of what they're trying to achieve. Just run away from pain, run away from pain, run away from pain. Okay, cool. That works. It works in finances. When you hit 0, you start saving. When you hit 20 kilos gained, you start dieting. But those that make it successful, the ones that never happen to them again, the ones that don't ever get to that low point, are the ones that are like, I'm going sliding backwards and I don't want to, or I want to move forward so I can do X, Y, and Z. I want to do B, C, and D. I want to do this, that, and the other. And when you use that sentence, you can't say, I want to do weight loss. I want to do 10 kilos off. It's like, I want to do what? What do you want to do? Put a small t-shirt on and feel really, really comfortable? Great. I want to play with my kids. Okay, cool. Reverse engineer that. But you can't say, I want to get 10 kilos. I want to be 10 kilos off for no reason, right? So like, you need that reason, but it's forward thinking as opposed to, I just don't want to be where I'm at right now.
But that's the thing as well, because we know the feeling we don't want to feel because we feel it all the time, but we need to be really good at understanding what is the feeling that I want to have rather than what I don't want to have, because again, you will gravitate towards what you're feeling. And if you're stuck feeling shit about yourself, you will gravitate around the behaviors that will continue to keep you feeling shit about yourself. So, and also the goal, again, it's in the future. So you kind of have to, in a way, fake it till you make it. Like you have to, you need to fake it. Like you have to be able to put your energetic self into a state of that person. Otherwise, you will find all the reasons subconsciously, by the way, which is like, none of this is like your fault. It's a subconscious program that runs if you're allowing it to. And the only way for you to change is to get off the autopilot and start to look at what you're doing constantly and to change and to be aware of it. But you have to put yourself in that emotional state of what that person looks like and then start to act like that person. And you might not feel like, if I say, well, if you want to be 20 kilos less, you just have to act like a 20 kilos less person. But that's actually how simple it is. And if I say that, you kind of know what you need to do. At that point, you actually don't need coaching. Yeah. At that point, you go, actually, I know that I need to maybe not eat 20 fried chicken every Friday night and then go for Ben and Jerry's because I feel guilty. Like, you would have known that, and you still do. Everyone who listens to this are intelligent people. So, you have to just stop what you're doing, assess what you're doing. And it comes back to what you said earlier. You have to, what did you say earlier? You said, well, you can't repeat the same pattern over, like you can't repeat what is working, right? Yeah. Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Like at some point in your life, you have to go, right, up until this point, I always sit at this time of the year and I always feel the same way. Okay, so next year, just whatever, do something different, whatever different. You might not know what the right different is, but just don't do the same thing.
100% and 100% agree. And if you want an ego breaker, which you should all be looking for, is just ask yourself, what would a healthy adult do? And I really hate that question. I really do. Like when I got posed that the first time, I was like, fuck you. And like, it's like, what would like, that was my instant response. I was like, what would a healthy adult do in this situation? Well, a healthy adult wouldn't get 2 Dominoes. A healthy adult wouldn't get 6 things and stuff themselves massively. And a healthy adult wouldn't, not go to the gym. A healthy adult wouldn't respond this way in this circumstance to this behavior. And when you then ask yourself, okay, what would a healthy adult do? Everybody knows what a healthy adult deep down would do. And therefore, if you act like that, you get great results. And like you said, fake it until you make it. Like the biggest thing out of all of this is like to start better behaviors and start to be the person you want to be. It starts with starting, and it starts with acting, and it starts with action. And therefore, even if, like for me, I don't know what it takes to be a millionaire, but I've got some friends around me that are millionaires, and I can look at them and go, well, they do this, they do that, they do this, they do that. I'll just do that. And like one of the best things I ever did, and this guy's a cunt, but whatever. Like, he taught me a lot by just being with him. Is that how do people in shape act? And like, I would go with this guy to breakfast, lunch, and dinner when we were away, and I would just see the way he ate. And guess what? I just copied him. And that was the start of me being able to stay in shape for life, because I was there coming down for breakfast. He'd already done an hour's work, part of the 5 a.m. club, and I came down at 6 and then lazing it down. And I looked at the buffet and was like, oh, there's croissants, there's all this type of stuff. And then he just had a fruit salad and some eggs on toast. And then I was like, oh, did you see the croissants? He was like, yeah, I did, but I'm just going to keep to what I normally eat. And I was like, what? Like, you're not going to bang out the croissants for breakfast in Italy when we're away? He's like, no, because I need to keep it the same. I want to keep it the same because I obviously want to kind of control my body fat. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then it was the same when I struggled with not wolfing down my food. I picked the slowest person who was eating at the dinner table and I copied them. And, you know, when I'm with you, and then this is M, when I'm with M, like, she'll do some things that were, you know, it'll be like more like her thoughts and the way that she thinks about specific things, and I'll just copy. And then guess what? They just become what I do. And then the more time I spend with those people, and even less time, the more time I just go with them, and then I just do the same thing. I just copy. And when you copy that, I think that becomes that you learn that behavior much quicker than if you were reading it from a book or you were thinking, I need to act a certain way. It's like, no, if someone's around you doing that thing, just copy them, motherfucker. And then and then eventually it becomes your thing. Like, if you copy someone working hard, like I've had this before, and this is totally off topic, but Elliot, he's not been on a podcast, but you'll know Elliot if you watch my vlogs, one of my closest friends, one of Em's friends as well. That dude is the slowest dude when it comes to check-ins. Like, back in the day, we were in Montenegro, and it literally might as well have been typing with one finger as opposed to your 10 fingers. And and I'm there steaming away because that's what I just do normally. And I just looked over the table and I just looked at him and I was like, fuck, are you running in slow motion or something? And then next minute, by the end of the week or by the 2 weeks, his typing speed and his thing had got so much better just because he was with me. Just because he copied what I was doing. He wasn't taking a break to kind of go for a coffee or have a little walk around the room. The guy was all in for 2 hours, working really, really hard that he didn't know how to do before, because he didn't know how to copy or didn't know what was expected or didn't know that level was there because he'd never been around people that had played that level or played that game. And therefore, he just copied. And guess what? Now he does way faster check-ins, I hope anyway. Yeah. But he definitely did on that week. But it's just that I think the copying nature is really, really important.
Which brings me to my fifth principle on my piece of paper is actually to upgrade my personal environment, or to be super conscious about who I spend most of my time with. I actually invested in a quite big program yesterday, which is like, okay, I'm actually putting my money into this because of the people that are in that group. So sometimes you don't have those people around you all the time. You need to actually pay for them. And I was scaredly putting a lot of money on the piece of paper yesterday, and they said, okay, I'm in. Because this is the thing, you become who you associate yourself with enough and most of your time with. So if you are currently wanting to fast track who you are into who you want to be, then that is it. You need to be surrounded by people that will actually lift you up on a subconscious level, because it happens subconsciously. You cannot not change depending on the social circle that you surround yourself with. So you have to, for the listener, if you are surrounding yourself with unhealthy people that have no personal development in their forefront and they don't want to improve themselves, you will struggle to get what you want, because it's inevitable. You cannot not change by the people that you hang out with. So that was one of my principles, to up level. I have some amazing friends. Like you are one of those people. I have some people that I go like, cool, I just need to have more of those in my life. And what happens? You have more of them, you start to see quicker results in whatever area you want, because it's the way people think that will affect you. It will be the questions they will ask. It will be their courage in asking questions. There will be so many things that you just observe, and because you're an observer, you take that in subconsciously, and the more you do, you start to ask those questions yourself. You start to, as you say, okay, so if I'm a slow typer and I'm surrounded by people that type fast, well, I'm going to become a faster typer.
Yeah.
It's just how it works. So the best way is to really look at where you're investing your time and with whom.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I had this conversation yesterday, and someone was like, "Oh, I really struggle with social events because everyone around them eats what they want, and I'm here eating just like one meal and stuff like that." Where then it just hits the fucking button because they just want to be included. It's like I just like, stop for a minute. I didn't say anything. I just said, hey, but are those people that you're around in the shape that you want to be? And then she actually said yes. I was like, great, that's fantastic. I was like, what do they do every day? Do at that dinner? What do they do before the dinner and whatnot? She was like, oh, these guys don't gain weight. They eat what they want at these dinners. And I'm like, okay, so are you with them the other 6 days of the week? No. Are you next to them when they step on the scales? No. Okay, so you don't know if they're gaining weight. Oh, you don't know if they're...
She's just assuming that they're eating whatever they want. They might be having their internal process of, actually, this is me restricting myself. Yeah. But because you have a different way of looking at what restriction means, that means that you're going to judge whatever someone else is doing based on your assumption. So we should never assume anything because we don't know.
Yeah, 100%. So, but what she'd done in that scenario is she'd just gone from face value on what they're doing and acted the same way. Now, that's an incredibly great tool, but if it's not positioned in the right way. So if you're right, like that, for her is exactly what would happen to you guys, the listeners, if you're around other people that are overweight, that don't give a shit, that don't have any health focus, you will just want to fit in. It's the social norm aspect. Like It takes a very, very strong person, which, if I'm being completely honest, if you're not in shape, you're not that's wrong. If you're not on a quest to like self-discovery and you're not aware enough, you will find it very difficult to step outside of the box. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of work to step outside the box every single scenario, every single place that you want to be, because you almost go your own way, and we want to be part of a tribe, we want to be part of like a community. And if you're going in the complete opposite way, you open yourself up for criticism, which then becomes something that you also don't want to do as well. So you have to look at the fact is that you will be around and you will do the social norm. If 7 of your friends love to take MDMA when they go out on the weekend, guess what, you're more than likely going to take MDMA. If your friends go for a takeaway and eat what they want, they'll eat you'll eat what you want. If you go for dinner with your parents and they aren't health focused and they serve 10 rotis with every meal and they have that, you're more than likely going to have very, very similar habits. Whereas if you're around people that, and this is why, like in my circle with the Asian market and the people that I love to help on a day-to-day basis, the biggest powerful thing is the referral of the person that you are coming from. They will be the person that you should like learn to emulate, because they're the only support network for you. You'll have 10 family that are acting like dicks in terms of their food and behaviors and training and nutrition and pill culture and whatever. And that one person may be your saving grace to latch onto and just mimic. And that's what you want to do. If you've got one friend that is into fitness, mimic the shit out of them. If they're somewhere close to where you want to be, even if they're not there fully, but they're making good trajectory, they will, and they're losing weekly, you can be like, oh, what are you doing? Mimic. You know, if they've stayed in shape for 6 months a year, or they changed massively and they're still in shape, ask them what they did. Mimic. If they gained all their weight back and they're back in the same place as before, ask them what they did. Don't mimic. And you then find out what you're doing anyway. So you'll get both sides of the coin. But having that circle of friends, oh, fucking hell, I've done that thing to the mic again. Equally, that mimicking of the circle and having your close friends, you almost sometimes, you need to change that and you grow with that. Now, most people in my community, the one that I help with the most of their family members are their community, but you don't choose your family. You are born into that one, unfortunately,
And we all know that Uncle Knobhead who we've got that, is not anywhere near the type of thing, the life that we want to lead. And because family is so complex in terms of like, it's your learned behaviors, it's your conditional behaviors, it's your genetics, it's all these things that you're exposed to for multiple years. You don't want to go against that because they're people that you've had around you for 20 years, 25 years, even further. But if it, again, it's that if they're not serving you and they don't live up to those things that you want to achieve, if they're not in shape or they're not wanting to improve their stuff, you need to find people that are and find that community. That's why going to a gym with a friend is really important. That's why going to something that has a community vibe, like a Facebook group or something like that, so you can vibe off those people that you know through friends of a friend. And then when you do go back home to those people that are not healthy or not in those behaviors, you have something to latch onto because you're copying and mimicking someone else that isn't just your family, who you didn't choose, isn't really your circle. It's your blood circle and your birth circle, which is different to the thing that makes you work forwards. Like there's a reason why I don't spend a lot of time with my cousins or the people that are family born, because they don't suit the nature that I would like to achieve. And when I spend more time with them, I settle more. But hence why I got a bloody house and a dog, and then realized that wasn't for me.
Yeah, because like it affects your emotional and your mental states. Like the people around you inevitably will affect your emotional and your mental state. And your emotional and mental state determines how you take action. So that is why it's so important to realize when you are not at your best and actually look at who you're surrounding yourself with, because, and it's not to blame people at all, but it's again taking that personal responsibility of what do I need to do in order to get to where I want to be, and who do I want to be? Because the fact is, if I hang out with my cousin Tom, who is just negative, well, if I want to be a positive person, I can't hang out with Tom too much. Like it's inevitable. I will listen to his negativity and just engage with it. And as soon as I engage with it, it changes my physiology and my state. And therefore my actions moving forward will be less proactive for that reason. So yeah.
So I think we hammered home what those are, and there's kind of the environment that you need for that. So setting those goals and reverse engineering what is possible. How do you like to do it? Let's say, for example, we take fitness and we take fat loss in, for example. What is the steps that you like to take outside of that whole first point of who do you want to be in 10 years time, 5 years time, wave a magic wand, what type of actions do you want, but how do you get them towards that first 10 kilos, 5 kilos? What type of reverse engineering are you doing?
I mean, a lot of the things that we talk about today, for sure, in terms of how you set up things to focus on, and then going into like, what does it mean to be that person? But like, I'm very huge on actually engineering the type of person you want to be. And it comes back to these principles. Like, do you understand what you value in life? Do you, like, for me, that's the thing that will continue to drive you forward. And by understanding what drives you, your motivation, who you want to be, especially who you want to be, not who you think you are, but like, if I could be anyone, if I could be exactly my absolute best version and start engineering my life from that, then the process will become so much easier, right? The science is still the science. If you want to lose 10 kilos, there is a science behind it that it needs to happen, right? Which is where, as a coach, you come in and you help facilitate that science, so that people who are already busy and intelligent and focused on other things as well, they don't have to think about it. They just have to do, right? But for me, it's huge, like, understanding your values. I do values with everyone. I was like, why do you want to be the way you want to be? What do you value in life? How will change make you more congruent with your values? Like, what is the disconnect between who you are right now and who you want to be? Because there is a disconnect, not only because you don't like what you look in the mirror, but you don't like how you act. There is right? So it's like, how will you like yourself more by acting the way you actually want to act? Right. And by doing that, you're actually, again, you're going back to making everything so much easier, because you just have a learned behavior of behaving in a way you don't want to behave. And then And then it's like, okay, but if you know how you want to behave and what that will do for you, then it's another way of just reprogramming yourself, right? And actually making sure that every day you start behaving like that person.
Yeah.
Right. I look at a lot of like limiting beliefs as well, right? Like, why do you not believe that whatever you want is possible? Because if you don't believe that something is possible, if you believe something, as you said earlier, like whenever you assume something to be true, it might be the thing that holds you back, because you're limiting decisions or beliefs around what is possible or not possible is the thing that actually determines your reality. Because the fact is, if I believe something to be true, the story I tell myself of why weight loss is hard, that's the reality of where I'm going to live from. So if I have this belief, which I in my head had made into a fact about what is possible or not possible, then I will live in accordance to that belief.
Yeah.
So
100%.
so my job is to like help people change the belief and change the story as well, because when you do, like your life is only what you think it is. It is not what it is. So if you can change the way you think of your life, you change the way your life is. So yeah, what do you do?
So like those are really fundamental pieces. So once you've done those, I think the next step is like identifying, okay, that tangible target that is there to kind of drive, motivate you, create that like kind of physical goal. Like there's two goals that you have. One is that mental change that we just spoke about now, and then one is the physical result. Like if you didn't have any brain, you still want to, if you still want to lose body fat, then we've got to do that mechanical part too. So the big key fundamentals are aim for about 1% a week of body weight loss. I think that's key. Obviously calorie deficit, put steps at 10k, 12k, and then just utilizing nutrition strategy that is inclusive of food, but is also then has that boundary of calorie intake. Once you create those things very, very uniquely to the individual, then you just set them on their way. 1% a week. If you're losing 10 kilos and it's 1 kilo a week is 1% because you're a 100-kilo dude or 110-kilo dude, then you will get there in 10 weeks time. And that 10 weeks can then be that first checkpoint to say, hey, you achieved that physical goal or you got something to drive towards. That's great. Then you set that next goal afterwards and keep on going like that. So I would say don't ever shoot for more than 1% of your body weight per week. It's like pointless because you won't be able to sustain it. Like I hate the word sustainability in terms of the dieting side of things, because it's only sustainable as you follow in the plan. But it's effectively, you don't want to overshoot because you put ramifications on how hungry you are, how much of a sacrifice it is, what your expectations are, whether you can actually get that weight off every single week. Whereas 1% or 0.75 to 1% of your body weight is logical. If you're asked for a kilo a week, but you're a 40-kilo female, you're never getting that off every week. I'm sorry, but you're not. That's 2% above where you should be. And like 2% of your body weight off coming every week is an aggressive diet. If you're 50 kilos and trying to do that, you're on sub 1,000 calories, 20k steps a day. And that's just the reality. Now, that's possible, but isn't a logical way to do it. There's nothing so desperate to lose 2% of your body every single week. And if you have, then you need to then learn to be able to take your the time frames and act sooner rather than later, and that's just not achievable. So 1% a week, and then just set that goal of, I don't really envision people, and I don't want people, based on research but also based on personal experience, I don't want people dieting more than 15 to 20 weeks in one block. So we will do a 3 to 4 month stint, then take a week of or a couple of weeks of maintenance, learning how to maintain the stuff like Easter, Christmas, birthdays anyway. So you generally do have that maintenance blocked in between, and then go again. So you do 12 to 15 weeks of dieting, then you do a maintenance week or two, and then you re-engage if you need to. If you don't, you just shift into a maintenance phase.
Yeah, for sure. And something that I do, I just FYI, for my ladies who might be really, really struggling at the end of their cycle, I actually sometimes go into, okay, we do 3 week blocks, and it coming off a little bit, 3 week block coming, but it's all about how you pre-frame it and put the expectations of what's going to happen and the explanation for why you do the things that you do, so that it makes sense. I really think that that's the biggest thing as a coach, is like you have to just make sure that it makes sense to the client. It's not just, because I think there's a lot of trust issues in this space now, because there is so much bullshit out there. So the best thing as a coach that we can do is to go, there is an explanation to why we do what we do, and here is why. And then go like, are you happy with this? Like, I actually put it back on them. Like, are you happy with this strategy? Are you happy that this is the outcome that we're looking for? Are you happy with this? We do this week, and if you want to go for a different strategy, and if you once we like out, like what do I want to say? Like, when we really made sure that this is either working for you or not working for you, we change it. Like, for me, it's way more interactive. I'm not here to just tell you what to do. It's like, does this fit? Are you happy with this? Because if you're happy with it, well, you're going to just do. But if you're like, this doesn't feel right, well, what's that going to do for the process? Well, it's going to make you feel like it's a process which you don't really understand and want to engage with. So there's going to be resistance. But as long as you understand why and what and how, and you feel happy, well, it makes everything a lot easier, because you're part of it. You're part of like the decision making. Yes, there's still the science that needs to happen, but if you feel like you're engaged, boom, happy days.
Yeah. It's the self-determination theory. If you create the goal, or you create the process, or you create the strategy, and you're happy for that to fit into your lifestyle, then there's a higher chance that you're going to be able to do it, because you're not just getting told to put a square peg in a round hole. You found a square peg and it's going in a square hole.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to finish the...
Everything works with violence and Vaseline. I've always heard that one. So,
spit and Vaseline.
Yeah, spit. Oh, shit. I'm not sure about that. I'd rather have the Vaseline, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. And that is a beautiful way to finish the podcast. Sponsored by Vaseline and spit. Whoever spit that is to you to decide. But apart from that, have a lovely week, guys. This is your New Year kind of kick up the arse. And then we will be back in January for your next bit of fitness advice. We'll just take this moment to say, the fitness podcast has been now running over a year, which is fucking crazy. Us three have just been spitting on the mic for a while now, and just basically chatting shit for a long time. We take a lot of value. This is where we get to spend time with each other anyway, in our busy lifestyle. So even if you're not appreciating it, we are. And then if you do have any type of queries, questions, any topics you want us to cover, then we're more than happy to do so. This is just going to run and continually run until it reaches Joe Rogan status, or it's just to help as many people as possible. So if you're listening to this, we thank you, we value you, and we really want you to kind of tune in and keep listening. So guys, have a lovely week, and chat to you soon.
And Merry Christmas, guys.
Ho ho ho, bitches.